Hello and welcome to the PitchMe workshop. My name is Tom. I'm the Customer Success Manager here at PitchMe. Today I want to talk about hiring trends for the coming year, 2021. Initially, I want to just talk to you potentially about what's currently happening. So we'll look at current trends and how they're potentially going to evolve into the new year, and different options to look out for as the year develops as well. So first of all, let's talk about getting ahead of the curve. So what's here to stay from the previous year? Now, arguably, nothing I'll be discussing here is going to be absolutely revolutionary. But I guess as a direct result of the pandemic, one of the key things that's changed in most people's world of work is working from home on a semi-permanent basis. So I think ultimately there's something to remember here, that it's probably the rule, not the exception, from here on out. So I'll go into a bit more detail in a second, but I think it's fair to say that most people have proven their ability to work efficiently and effectively from home. And I think there's a certain work-life balance and lifestyle that working from home enables people. And ultimately, as people have got used to that, they've become that's very much something that people look out for now, potentially in future employment or where they work at the moment. So according to the World Economic Forum, 98% of employees want the option to work from home at least some of the week, so at least 1 or 2 days a week. Pretty overwhelming to say that everybody wants that option probably isn't surprising, but I would say that people's comfort in working from home has obviously changed. Ultimately, we're coming up to 9-10 months now where most of the economy that can work from home has been working from home in the UK, US, and across Europe. So I guess having enabled people to do so has meant that that's now an expectation. I think ultimately the biggest concern that people have is how they can develop their work-life balance. So typically what Deloitte found in their recent study is that employees struggle to switch off from work. Around 20% of employees said that was the biggest challenge in terms of working from home. So I think part of that is introducing flexible hours for employees, and companies have come to do that, understanding that sometimes people work more effectively at different parts of the day, not your strict 9 to 5 or whatever sort of previous regime companies worked under. So in terms of how this is going to develop and have more an effect on individuals over time, is very much weighted towards mental health. So recent studies, and we're very early on here in terms of what we can actually understand and what we can take from the studies that have happened so far in regards to mental health and the impact of the crisis. But I think without a doubt that's probably the main concern for most employees and employers themselves. So you've got to tackle things like workplace loneliness. Lots of people work from home completely on their own, and ultimately it's going to lead to long-term social issues potentially as well. In England, the UK Centre for Mental Health estimated that 20% of the population will need additional mental health support as a direct result from the crisis. So that's about 20% of the population. There are estimates in the US that number is more like 40%. But if we take this as a conservative estimate of 20%, it clearly shows that there's going to be a real impact on the workforce from a mental health point of view, and the lasting effects of the pandemic have probably got a lot more to do with mental well-being as well, not just the obvious physical impact. And I guess part of what companies need to do and look at is investing early into technologies that can help the team. There's always a teething period for any new implementation, and something that a lot of companies have been considering but maybe haven't implemented yet are various e-learning courses that have obviously boomed in the last few months. But the reality is, if you get in early, so if you look at here now in January and developing different options for your employees, it's going to ultimately impact how they work for the rest of the year. And ultimately, there are platforms already in existence that do a really good job of this. So some of them are our partners actually here at PitchMe. Alison, FutureLearn, Cadence is just to name a few in terms of learning and developing as part of your world of work. So upskilling and reskilling is one of the buzzwords of the year, I guess, in the UK at least. But the reality is that this also helps develop and it helps people with their mental health as well, working from home, because it gives you an option to switch off onto something that isn't just go from work on your computer to social media on your phone. You're getting a rewards-based system, so you're going to get something out of time that you're spending at home, not just your normal interaction. So it also helps reduce things like Zoom fatigue or just video conferencing fatigue. You can help break up your day. 30 minutes a day spent on a short course has been proven to help stimulate mental well-being. Other technologies specifically designed for mental wellness and mental well-being. A good example in the UK is Headspace. That's designed purely for focus rather on mindfulness and developing employee engagement, understanding more about how people react and their emotions to their current circumstance. I think ultimately the message here is that the technology exists. We have the option and the ability to upskill and reskill, as many people are aware, but I think there is not necessarily the connection between the importance of upskilling, reskilling, keeping engagement outside of the world of work, and just from a digital point of view is really going to help generate a more a happier and more effective workforce, because ultimately mental well-being is going to be the next big crisis as a result of COVID. But I think that just in the early stages of these statistics, going back to the 20% needing additional or new mental health support is going to have a huge factor going forward. And I think companies who are implementing upskilling, reskilling, and mental health awareness courses, but more so in terms of mindfulness and having that as part of your HR team, or just part of the leadership team, understanding that, I think is going to be more important as time goes on. Something that we're keeping from last year but developing, I guess, is diversity inclusion. So as we saw through general cultural patterns, but also in terms of awareness as well, during the pandemic, diversity and inclusion amongst businesses and corporations has never been a hotter topic. But I think ultimately a lot of companies want to be a part of that and understand that they are part of a progressive society, but ultimately not necessarily understanding how one can do that. So something that studies have shown is that eliminating hiring bias is the best way to create a diverse team. So be it blind hiring, the elephant in the room here, obviously that's part of what we do here at PitchMe. So making sure that we're evaluating individuals based purely on their skill set and their experience, rather than just what their CV will initially tell us. I think taking raw information away from a CV and seeing and being able to compare people individually without knowing anything about them has been proven to be the way to go forward in terms of developing and increasing diversity and inclusion in your team. Ultimately as well, research suggests that companies are far more successful who incorporate a diverse and inclusive working environments. Ultimately, it's not just a diversity of ideas and extra soft skills that come from hiring a wide range of people, but it's also a happiness index of different businesses. So it's certainly something to look out for. I think ultimately a lot of people know about this as a trend, but not necessarily understanding how to implement it. High unemployment rates are a good thing for companies looking to bring people on. Ultimately, you're going to have a more enriched talent pool. The reality is a lot of candidates are potentially out of work when they previously would have been working in a competitor and would have been more expensive to persuade to bring on or what have you. So there's the obvious benefits of that being a trend for the next 12 months. Economies aren't a switch, and unfortunately, as furlough schemes begin to unwind across the UK, Europe, and so on, we're going to see an increased amount of highly skilled people unemployed in the marketplace. Now, the best way to utilize that tool when you're hiring is to incorporate technology, and in particular artificial intelligence, in your screening process. So part of what PitchMe have done and the research that we've had on our vetting and ranking process that our AI does is that we can increase hiring by 4 times. This is primarily from the lack of having to review the sheer volume of candidates as we previously would. So if we're getting 200 candidates an application, we can narrow down the top 10% of those candidates almost instantly based purely on their skill set that we can analyse and vet their sources as well across the web, so be it GitHub, LinkedIn, etc. And I guess something that's going to be important is being able to save that element of time as well, especially for companies who have been successful as a result of the pandemic and how that's changed the world of work, and in particular those companies tend to be technology businesses. So the reality is incorporating artificial intelligence into the hiring process is only going to be a positive thing going forward, whether you're building a team of 1 or 2 more people, or you've got a large growth plans for the next 12 months. Having something implemented and ready to start the year is going to be the best way to approach the coming periods. That kind of wraps up the most prominent trends that we can expect and what is, I guess, coming with us into 2021. What's interesting is that I think from any year in living memory, probably since post-war at least, this is probably one of the most hopeful Januaries on record. But I think ultimately there is a reality of we're not out of the woods yet in terms of a pandemic, and I think that companies who are prepared and understand the potential changes and trends that are going to happen, specifically with regards to working from home and mental well-being, I think that's clearly going to be the I guess one of the big topics of the next 12 months, and getting ahead of the curve there in particular is going to be really crucial, I think, for the next phase. So that's everything. Be sure to check out our various socials here. We've got our blog that we post regularly as well. It'll cover a bit more in depth of what I've discussed today, but it'll also give you extra information to stay abreast of the different topics in the hiring and recruitment world, and also to make sure that you are you're staying up to date. Thank you very much.